all the demons quiet. Yeah, we were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. Hey, it's too late to try to go contain it. A generation fueled by creation. We live lives on a small screen nation. We control the airwaves, no negotiation. I refuse to think we need saving. Something good will come from creation. And when we think that the world is too anxious, we'll adapt, evolve, survive, and save it. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. Hey, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong.
Faced the beast, I felt its claws, I've seen its feast. It whispers lies, it feeds on fear, but I stand strong, the path is clear. The shadows crawl, the weak may fall, deception spreads to choke us all. I won't be fooled, I won't comply, I raise my voice, I will not die. Rise from the ashes, break every chain. Truth is our weapon, fury our flame. The night may scream, but we are stronger than what we've seen. I've beaten the base, I face the night. Now who stands with me to claim the fight? No more lies, no more deceit. We rise as one, our hearts won't retreat. The beast may roar, it may claw, it may bite, it prowls the dark, it shuns the light. But we are fire, we are steel, we take our fate, we will not kneel. Eyes open wide, hearts burning bright, we move as one through endless night. The lies may try to pull us down, but we are kings and queens uncrowned. Rise from the ashes, break every chain. Truth is our weapon, fury our flame. The world may tremble, the night may scream, but we are stronger than what we've seen. I've beaten the beast, I face the night. Now who stands with me to claim the fight? No more lies, no more deceit. We rise as one, our hearts won't retreat. Step forward, brother, sister, stand tall. Hear the call that shatters the wall. The beast will fall, its reign will end. We are the truth, we will defend. Shout it loud, let the mountains shake. We are the storm, we are awake. From the ashes, from the pain, we rise again, we rise again. I've beaten the beast, I face the night. Now who stands with me to claim the fight? No more lies, no more deceit. We rise as one, our hearts won't retreat.
Well, all right. Welcome to Not Your Normal Sunday. I'm Jeffrey Darty, the Christian whistleblower. I salute you for being here seeking after truth. And we are coming to you tonight, wall to wall and treetop tall, coast to coast, border to border, and beyond. Tonight we got a big one, assault on Aquarius. We've got a cultural false flag. Was the 1960s a cultural false flag? We'll talk tonight about the attack, the MK Ultra Tavistock mind control attack on Elvis Presley and his mother. We'll talk about the attack on the Beatles and Paul McCartney specifically. We'll go into the Paul is dead theory. And then we will plumb the depths of the mystery of the Manson event, the Charles Manson event. We will open up the phone lines and you can call in if you'd like. I'm a 25-year Bible college graduate or 25-year minister, Bible college graduate. I have over 100,000 hours of study in the biblical Hebrew and Greek New Testaments. And I'm here to give you all the information you need to make a rational decision on your eternal destiny. Great to see all of you here tonight. For the first time, we're broadcasting live through our streaming platform to TikTok. We're also over on a couple of others. We're on Facebook for both the people that watch there. We're on YouTube, and we're also on X. I just can't get Rumble figured out, but I'm excited today. I published the new book yesterday. I'll give you details on that in just a minute. The new book is Assault on Aquarius. And I'm already 150 pages into the next book, which is called Assault on Camelot. And that deals with the John F. Kennedy event in Dallas in November of 1963. It deals with big stuff in regards to that. And wow, it is one heck of a book. It should be out next month. So, are you ready to rock and roll? I'm coming to you from an undisclosed location somewhere deep in the American heartland, and we're ready to rock and roll tonight. I'm House MDiv, MDIV, the Master of Divinity. I've been diagnosing spiritual anomalies since 1999. We know that the truth is very seldom on the surface. So we go into the hidden patterns, the symbols, the esoteric history, the anomalies, the forbidden knowledge. We diagnose, we question, we investigate, we connect, and we reveal the truth. And you can decide if you want to accept it or not. We've been doing it since 1999, and we are not about to slow down now. I want to thank Blake for a great $20 donation. I appreciate it so much. I don't want to be the guy that begs for money, but boy, I need it now more than I ever have. And thank you to Patrick, who sent me a $50 donation. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. And it means more to me than you can possibly know. So let's go ahead and get into the deep program. And we'll start it off with the rods. If you have rods questions, put them in capital letters in the chat. Here's how the rods work. Cynthia realized I switched my jacket. It kind of matched the one in the thumbnail, honey. So I figured I would do that. Is Jeff wearing a pink jacket tonight? No, I'm not. It's not outside the realm of possibility. It takes a real man to wear pink, but I'm not. Is Jeff wearing a snazzy gold and black jacket with black lapels? Yes, he is. So you can ask any yes or no questions, and the rods will answer them. I'll have the rods out. So all you have to do is put your question in the chat in all capitals, because that way I'll see it. We get a lot of chats in here. We got a nice crowd building. So I won't always see the chats. If you're on TikTok, unfortunately, your chats don't come through, and that's too bad. I'm going to go ahead and go on TikTok on my phone. I'm going to mute it. So if you do want to come up on TikTok, well, then I don't know if it's going to let me do the live part on here, though. I don't know if I can see my live here, but I'm trying to work this thing out, trying to figure this thing out. I'm only like 3 weeks on TikTok, so I don't really understand how to do it. So I will put the phone number up on the screen once we start the deprogram. So if you have any questions, no matter where you're watching, just call in. And if you can be polite, if you can be interesting, and if you can adhere to platform policies, we will bring you on. Just some follow-ups from the last deprogram we did about Baphomet, the real story of, of Baphomet. This comes from Randall Hilburn. We talked about Baphomet was only created in the 1850s, and he is a plagiarism of the original horn deities, Cernunnos, and along with his consort, the triple goddess, he's the oldest European deity. He's used and is associated with the Irish peoples, my people, in general. And he's the manifestation of the male principle in nature. And his consort, of course, is the female, and that would be the triple goddess. And together they are responsible, Randall says, for bringing us into fullness and balance. Now, this comes from Colleen, and she's talking about Alphonse Louis Constant. He was the son of a shoemaker in Paris. This is the guy that invented Baphomet. He, of course, changed his name to Eliphas Levi, I believe it was. But he was a Roman Catholic priest. He remained a cleric for the rest of his life. And he was a guy that changed his name to Eliphas Levi. And sorry, little nicotine pouch cough there. You put a 15 in, and man, I know some of you in TikTok probably don't recognize me with my clothes on. You didn't put it in all caps, Super Galactic, but we'll do it. Super Galactic asks, do they use mirrors in television for MK Ultra mind control? Let's ask those separately. Are mirrors sometimes used for MK Ultra mind control? The answer to that is yes. Is television used for MK Ultra mind control? The answer to that is yes. Fast Fred said he'd like to meet a pastor that's going to be honest when I corner him in front of the congregation. They tell me they're having technical difficulties. They'll get back to me, but they never do. That's not really a question, but that's okay. So true to form, this Judeo-Christian minister did have a child out of wedlock. So that kind of gives you an idea of what he was. And clergy, of course, are leaders within established religions. So Levi identifying as a cleric definitely puts him within the fear and guilt Judeo-Christian mind control matrix. That was the gist of that one. And if you had any questions about whether or not Baphomet was intended to be a Christian symbol, well, here's the Baphomet pentagram with Adam and Eve on it. So that's proof positive that yes, it was indeed. Is the Bible used for mind control? Just put your comments in all caps if you want to have a Rod's question. Is the Bible used for mind control? Yes, an enthusiastic almost hit me in the face. Yes, from the Rods. And if you want to get Rods for yourself, you can do so. That might be
Never date a Christian man.
Okay, so there's probably a
Never date a Christian.
If you want to get Rods for yourself, send me an email. It's Gotham Ltd, Gotham Ltd at Gmail. I'm putting it up right here. I make the rods personally, each and every pair. I'm sending out a pair on Monday. They're $50. They're solid copper. They're handmade. That includes your shipping. And it's only for delivery to the United States. I can't even send them to Canada. So $50, shipping included, and you can get your own rods. You can get your own rods. So with that, let's go ahead and get into some of our clips tonight. They're usually a lot of fun, and, you know, we like to poke a little fun and have a little fun. So remember, this program is always for entertainment purposes only.
Never date a Christian man ever, not once. And I don't care what denomination. I understand there are 45,000 denominations. That's y'all's own problem.
And
If you can't
she's
figure
right.
out what the supposedly one true way, the one kind of morality, the one kind of truth that is apparently, is supposed to be evident to the rest of us, even though there is literally no realistic evidence to suggest that any one of the 45,000 denominations are more correct than any of the others. Like, I can't with that. That's y'all's own problem. I can't figure it out for you. But no matter what denomination a man says he is, I would never date a Christian man. I would never date a man from any of the Abrahamic faiths, because the premise of all Abrahamic faiths is built into the concept.
She's not wrong. She goes on a feminist rant here, and I didn't really want to go to that. But the instruments right, the email's right on the screen. Zach, just go ahead and send me an email. But she's not wrong. She is not wrong. And everything she said is absolutely accurate. I'm not sure why people still believe this, especially those that say they're truthers. I'm a little bit excited today. I usually sleep about 9 hours, but I went to bed at 1 o'clock last night after popping in 100 pages on the new book. And then I woke up at 6:30, just boom, wide awake. And I've been energetic ever since. I'm up to, I think, 170 pages now in the new book. It's going to be close to 400 pages. And I'm fired up. I'm ready. And I'm back in the saddle, baby, and good to go. So let's press.
Okay, so there's probably a simple explanation for this, but why is space dark if the sun is in space? Shouldn't it light everything up? Y'all like the video, let's find out.
We're told the sun is a huge ball of fire, floating
Correct.
in space, shining light in all directions.
Yeah.
That sounds clear. But when astronauts show videos from space, everything around them looks black. No glowing light everywhere.
I mean, that's pretty
No
true.
bright background, just darkness. Now think about this. If you
Thinking.
turn on a flashlight in a dark room, the light spreads.
Yeah.
You see it, you feel it, it fills the space. So why doesn't sunlight do the same thing in space? And wait,
I don't know.
Gets
Why
strange.
doesn't it?
So why is space dark if the sun is out there shining its light? We are not getting the whole story. We are not getting the whole story. And I know this excites our flat earth folks, but flat earthers, I have to ask you, you came into flat earth seeking truth. You came into flat earth asking questions and questioning answers. Why do you allow yourself to be drawn into the fear and guilt, Judeo-Christian mind control matrix? 99% of flat earthers are Christians. If you came in asking and willing to question whether the earth is flat, then how come now you can't apply that same inquisitive attitude to the Bible? I'd love to hear you call in and give me an answer to that question. Just because you're in flat earth, and if you are, doesn't mean that you should stop thinking. It's antithetical to what brought you to flat earth. So I'm asking you to ask yourself, why did you stop asking questions? And why did you stop questioning answers? That's my question to you. It's very, very simple.
These leaders you see, right? These leaders you see, they are puppets. They are just the face. The real power are these secret societies that practice these rituals. You can think about how this works and ask yourself, does it explain the world? Okay? All right. So having explained this, what I'm going to do now is go into the deep theory as to why this is happening. Okay? So if you talk to these people and they're honest with you, they'll tell you that when we do this, we access God, and God gives us divine power because they're superstitious and they're stupid. Okay? Just because they're elite, just because they're powerful people, does not mean they're clever. In fact,
He
they're kind of
said
stupid.
that, I
You have to
didn't.
meet them, right? But I'm going to explain how this system works, and when I explain to you, it will make sense. I know this is disturbing. I know I'll probably get banned on YouTube for this, but it's important that we do this. Okay?
All right. I can't argue with the guy. I cannot argue with the guy. I really can't. So, hey, there's that one.
Again, who said this was okay to begin with? Check this out.
We are programmed to go to school 5 days a week, approximately 8 hours a day until we're around 18. Gets us prepared for what we're supposed to do after that, which is now go to work 5 days a week for approximately 40 hours a week. They will give us money for doing that, and we are programmed that this money is real and we need it. And then we go ahead and we give half of it to our awesome leaders who have our best interest in mind. And then around the time we hit about 5 to 7 years from death, we're allowed to stop. And they give us maybe a quarter of what you were getting before you're on your way out anyway. First of all, what the fuck do they need money for? They print money. They don't need your money. Pretty soon they won't even have to print it. It'll just be digital. They don't need your money. They need you to believe in that game. That's what they need. They don't need your money. They can print money hand over fist. What they need is for you to believe in this whole thing so that you will go to work and you will focus your time and energy on what they want. You got to remember something. When you're born at the level of the elites, they don't go to work. They don't work. Their children don't work. They have mansions, they have yachts, they have Learjets, they have servants. They get to do the best of everything, eat the best of food, go to the best places on the whole world, see the best shows from the best position, all of it. Taken there in limousines, flying in Learjets. See, they can't have all that unless if we keep believing this fucking bullshit that money is real and that we have to earn it and give half of it so that we can be here so we can retire and then die 5 to 7 years later. This is the reality they created through language, in psyops, in narratives over and over and over again. We are the conscious creators and this is our realm. It is time to awaken. There's a much better way to do this and create a place that we actually want to be in. Shatter the illusion and stand courageous for the future children and us.
Some people are definitely okay with doing the job, getting the salary, and they're fine with it. So don't change that. Just do what you think.
That is my position. It's time for us to stand up and start rebuilding the golden age. It is our birthright.
Can I please have a man slowly explain to me why you all suck so much?
I have to stop her for a second. And let me help you ladies out for a minute, okay? I understand that these nose rings are popular. I understand that you ladies really like them. But can I let you in on a little secret? Trying to help you. Can I let you in on a little secret? Men don't like those things. Men do not like those things. Now, they may not tell you, but I love you. I'm trying to help my sisters out. Men don't like those things. If we wanted to date beings with big old nose rings in their nose, we'd go out with bulls. We just don't like those things. We really don't. But she makes a couple of good points right here. I just can't take my eyes off the damn nose ring. I'm sorry, but she makes a couple good points. Let's let her go on.
I can honestly sit here and say, as a 34-year-old woman, I have not met one good man.
And she's pretty cute too. I mean, she's up there, what, 7, 8-ish. She's pretty cute. Got pretty eyes. She got a pretty face. She got good skin. Of course, we can't really tell with the filters these days. And ladies, what's up with that? You know, you go on these dating sites and you put your pictures up with these filters. Then you show up on the first date and we can't even recognize you. Look, I'm a really nice guy. And thank the gods I don't have to date anymore. I found my perfect lady. But there's been times when women have walked in, and I know dudes do it too, but women have walked in, they don't look anything like their picture, and I simply just walk out. We don't like the nose rings, and get the filters off your platform. It's dishonest and it's not going to end well for you. It's just not.
Please, someone explain to me why that is. It can't be a coincidence. I've never had a good male figure in my life, and I've never had a man treat me right romantically. I've never even had a good male friend. So someone sit here and tell me what's wrong with y'all.
You are...
I'm going to help this young lady out. I'm going to explain to her why she can't find a good man. And there's one answer for it. Well, it's actually a twofold answer. Because we live in a country where at least about half the people, when I started, it was about 70% of the people, but about half the people say they're Christians. And half the people believe Galatians 3:28. And Galatians 3:28 says there is no longer any male or female when you're in Jesus. And Jesus is in you. And every guy that's a Christian is trying to make his way into the bride of Christ. How can you be a man and be a bride? Do you know what happens to the bride on the wedding night? How are you going to look in a wedding dress? The Bible even says you're dressed as a bride ready for your groom. How do brides dress? In dresses. So, sweetheart, the problem is that most of the men out there are Christians. Most of them don't believe, if they believe the Bible, that there's any male or female anymore. And the rest of them are all trying to become a bride. That's why men suck. Date you a non-Christian, preferably an anti-Abrahamic man, and you'll find some good men. We got some in the chat right now. We got another Rod question. I'm going to simplify it just a little bit. Is there a second son? Absolutely. Might the real son be black? Absolutely. So keep your Rod questions coming. Matthew, thanks for doing it the right way. It helps a brother out. So there you go. She's cute and she still can't find a good man. That's because she's fishing in the wrong pond.
Do you believe in miracles? How about creative ones? Watch this.
I believe in a creative miracle.
What's the matter?
I believe the Lord will give me.
Is he blind? Because he needs a good haircut too. Oh, I'm sorry.
Wonderful ears.
Okay, so you have no appendages.
No.
Yes,
okay.
The ears inside.
Ears inside.
And can hear, and then this helps him.
Yes.
His mother was on a medication that would bring deformity or death to the babies.
Okay, but I want to get clear. So there's no appendage on either side.
Outside, right.
Okay. He has.
Let me address something that came up in the chat. Gilly says that Jesus wants people to follow the way, not Noahide laws. I got a problem with that, Gilly, because you look at the Noahide laws, and I know Christians get all upset about the Noahide laws, but let me give you a little homework. Let me give you a little suggestion. If you look at the Noahide laws, every one of them is already in the 10 Commandments. You're keeping the Noahide laws. The Noahide laws are just a deception to make you afraid of something. much like Sharia laws. I don't believe that a person should have to live under any religious laws. No one should have to live under any religious laws. We should be able to worship according to our conscience. So the Noahide laws are just a distraction, and the Noahide laws are contained in all of the 10 commandments. But this dude doesn't have any ears, and this is a preacher going to pray for him.
His ears on the inside.
Yes.
Okay, so he can hear.
Yes.
And what's this device right here?
It's a hearing aid.
It's a hearing aid.
Helps him.
So if that's
I'm hard of hearing. I was born hard of hearing.
hard of hearing. So if you take that off, then what?
It'll be quiet.
You won't have any hearing.
Well, I can hear well.
Okay. So what do we want to do tonight? We want to grow new appendages. Okay. All right. And we want to hear better.
Yes.
Without that.
Well,
Would that be great?
yes.
So how about if we got rid of that? You can hear great, and then the ears grow back.
Okay.
Come on, man, get to
Is
it.
that a good deal? Now, who are you?
I'm his aunt and his pastor, great nephew.
Your great nephew. What do we want to do? Want to put your hands up in the air? You want to take this off? What do you want to do?
I like to pray.
You have to what?
I like to pray.
You want him to pray?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm pausing because there is such an atmosphere here, and you feel it too.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this. He's boring me. He's boring me.
Take this off, Hayden. Take it off. Here we go.
Except I
I've
can't
never
get my
seen one quite
computer
like
to
that.
cooperate with me.
That's interesting. Here we go. Give me hold this. Give it
Come on, man.
to your great aunt. Can you hear me?
A little.
A
Yes.
little. What do you mean a little? When you
So anyway, the pastor prays for the guy. I got to be honest, I haven't made it all the way to the end. Haven't made it all the way to the end because obvious reasons. But okay, he's got no ears. He can still hear. I hope the kid gets ears, but I want to tell you a little story about a man named Jeffrey. Brady Bunch. I was preaching in Frankfurt, Germany, and this little dude came up from Bangladesh. I was preaching, right? And you have a big, long healing line. And this dude from Bangladesh comes up, and he's got, glasses on. He's obviously blind. And he says that he wants to pray that he'd receive his sight. I'm like, okay, no problem. Done that before. No big deal. Then he takes off the glasses. And it wasn't just that he wanted to receive his sight. Like our friend with the bad haircut and no ears, he didn't have eyes. When he took the sunglasses off, all he had was two holes in his head because you could see that his eyelids were concaved. I looked at the guy and I looked at my assistant and I'm like shaking my head like, wow, I've never seen this one before, but I did what I do. And by the way, I never used anointed oil. Most of the preachers will get their little oil and they'll put it on your forehead. Not me, baby. I've been preaching for at least 2 hours. I'm sweaty. I just take the sweat of my brow and boom, that's my anointed oil. And in 25 years of ministry, I never had one person go, ooh, yuck, don't touch me with your sweat. So now I'm being like that preacher. But I went to praying for this kid. He was maybe 25 or so. I went to praying for him. I stood back and started watching, and his eyelids started fluttering. And then his eyelids started filling. And then after about 2 minutes, he opened what was empty eye sockets. And he had 2 new, beautiful, perfectly functioning eyeballs. Now, I'm going to be a little bit funny. It's a little bit of satire, but come on, bro. Ears ain't no big deal. Anybody can do ears. Come back to me when you can do eyeballs and beautiful blue eyeballs. Come back to me when you can do beautiful blue eyeballs. Ears are for babies. Come on back to the Christian whistleblower when you can do eyes, baby. And I shouldn't say it because I do have the right to remain silent, but I don't always have the ability. And I shouldn't say it, TikTok. I really shouldn't, but I didn't heal that guy in the name of Jesus. I didn't heal that guy in the name of Yeshua, Yahweh, Yahashua, Jehovah, none of that. You know what I healed that guy in? I healed that guy in the name of Jeffrey Darty. Receive your sight, grow new eyeballs, and boom, he did it. What's the lesson? Well, number one lesson is ears are for babies. Come on back to the Christian Whistleblower when you can do some eyes. Then we'll talk. But the other takeaway from that is it ain't the name of Jesus. It ain't the name of Yahweh, your way, one way, highway. It ain't none of those names. It's in the power of the intention of the person that is doing the healing. Ears are for babies. Come on back when you can do eyes. What do y'all think about that?
Do you believe in miracles? How about creative ones? Watch this.
I believe in a creative miracle.
What's the matter?
Sorry about that.
People are experiencing time moving slower. Since CERN shut down, they're saying that it feels like time is moving slower. Their days feel long again, almost as if they're in their childhood. Have you guys had any of that experience? I have. I just want to give you an opportunity before I say something.
2 nights in a row, I know this sounds stupid, but I fell asleep very early for who I am. I'm a night owl, so I stay up late. The first night, I think it was Monday. It was Monday and Tuesday this week. Monday, I fell asleep at like 7:40, and I woke up like the best sleep I've had in a long time. I was knocked out, fell asleep, woke up really early, and it was like my day felt like it was, just
expanded.
Like it felt like when I went to bed at 7:40 that it was normal time. And then the following night, I went to bed at like 9:30, and it was just like
old soul.
Have you guys experienced this? I didn't even know that CERN was shut down. I didn't. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really get wrapped up in that. I think that's another kind of a distraction. The Hadron Collider, the Bogue-Parsons particle. That's really interesting. But have you guys, you can tell me in the chat, have you guys experienced time slowing down? And do you correlate it with CERN shutting down? Time is a Abrahamic matrix. Those of us that don't align with the Abrahamic matrix, you'll see I never wear a watch, don't deal with time. We opt out of time. If anything, I've kind of experienced time speeding up. I've not experienced time slowing down. Let's ask the rods. Has time slowed down since the shutdown of CERN? No. Is CERN even really shut down? Yes, sort of. CERN is shut down. If anything, time has sped up for me. So I thought it was interesting. I just wanted to see everybody so far in the chat. I've got like 6 speed ups. So that's been my experience. Time is speeding up, in my experience, not slowing down. I don't know, maybe they're on certain substances that they're zooming and they got to slow down. Kylie says that she thinks it's slowing down. So if Kylie says it, it's got to be so. Love Kylie. She's been around for a long, long time. So yeah, I as a subscriber, I just don't see it, but it's interesting.
Are you paying attention?
This guy's
They
good.
took the trees. Our fruit trees. They took the trees and sold us back the fruit. Then they took the water, rivers, rain, springs that fed civilizations for thousands of years, bottled it, and sold it back to us. They took the land that existed here long before any human drew lines around it. And they said, if you want to stand here, you better have a payment plan. Everything we need to exist, food, water, shelter, is already here. Nobody created it. But somehow, you were born owing for it. Am I the only one this drives mad? I mean, why is a free life such a crazy idea? Why does simply existing without bills, debt, or permission sound like a fantasy? Why in the hell did we ever let anybody convince us that this is the way things were supposed to be?
I got an answer.
They took the trees.
Funny how the character delivering this is literally chaos incarnate. Real pushback against the system comes from disciplined people who build parallel structures, teach their kids self-reliance, and vote.
First of all, that guy does probably the best Heath Ledger impression that I've ever seen. That was solid. I agree with you, Gilly. That was solid. Did you know that all of this stuff, this idea of working 40 hours a week, this idea of taxation, this idea of you have to own property, this idea of all of this, it didn't exist until the Abrahamic matrix showed up on Earth. These are all Abrahamic constructs. If you don't believe me, read the book of Acts. Why have we allowed the fear and guilt, Judeo-Christian, mind control matrix and virus to invade us and think that this is normal? Maybe we're the jokers. And maybe it's time for a little chaos. Heathens, we didn't have money. Think about it. It's really a compelling question if you allow yourself to sit with it for a few minutes. Now, this is where we segue into our deprogram tonight. This guy is Bob Joyce, and lots of people say he's Elvis Presley. Bob Joyce is rumored to be Elvis Presley. Here's what Bob Joyce has to say about it.
I want y'all to know that I, Bob Joyce, am not, nor ever have been, any other person but me. I am not trying to lead people to believe or make them believe that I'm somebody that I'm not. If anybody says so, they're wrong. This church is not running some kind of scam or scheme to make money, to get a following, to make people believe that I'm somebody that I'm not. I am no other person.
You know, that's kind of a half-hearted denial. Why don't you just come out and say, I'm not Elvis Presley? Probably because it would cost them money. Probably because it would cost them him money. But no, Bob Joyce is not Elvis Presley, folks. And if you believe that, I'm sorry to disappoint you. But even Bob Joyce wouldn't say he was Elvis Presley in that video, at least. So we had the follow-up on Baphomet, the real story. And now we're ready to jump into the assault on Aquarius. The assault on Aquarius. Was it a culture war? It was the 1960s culture war, and it was a cultural false flag. I've just completed a book on this. Let me put up the caption. The book is now available. It's available at that link. Just go to thebookpatch.com. The link is actually in the box beneath. I think it's around my 20th book, maybe 18, 19, maybe 21, 22. I don't really know. But the book is now available. Go to thebookpatch.com and just search in the the bar up top, just put in Assault on Aquarius, and it'll take you to the book. It'll take you to the rest of my books. But fair warning, they're good, but all of them except for Assault on Aquarius, and maybe the ones on Jesus was an alien, maybe the Final Message of the Last Apostle. Those are all written from a Christian perspective. And I'm no longer a Christian. I was for 25 years. I'm not anymore. I should go back and rewrite some of those with my new understandings. But Assault on Aquarius is not a Christian book. You can order that without any worries, without any concerns. I'm not sure where I went next. I've been so busy. But this also came to me from Colleen, and this is pretty interesting. At the start of his meteoric rise to fame, Elvis Presley received threatening postcards, this one from an anonymous sender that said, "If you don't stop this SHIT now, we're going to kill you." This is documented in the FBI files on Elvis Presley. So Elvis was very much attacked by the government. He was very much attacked by the cabal establishment. And I have to share with you that Elvis Presley was attacked specifically because Elvis Presley was leading what I call the resurgence of Aquarius. The 1960s were a time where people were becoming spiritually aware. I'm convinced that the powers that be understood that humanity was on the brink of a new spiritual renewal. And because of that, they targeted some of the leading cultural figures, really countercultural in that day. I know it's kind of hard to think of Elvis Presley as a countercultural figure, but just to frame up the deprogram tonight, let me read you the snippet on the back of the book. And it says, the 1960s are, by the way, the book is $19.95. That does not include the shipping, so you have to pay a couple of dollars more, usually $3 or $4 for the shipping. Now, if you want to get an signed copy of the book, or have me write something in it for you, I'm happy to do that. But I'm going to have to ask you to pay $29 for it, because I have to get the shipping to me from the publishing house and then send it to you. So if you want me to sign it, if you want me to put a special message in it, I'll do that. But it'll be $29.95 instead of $19.95. But you can go ahead and get your rods if you want to, and you can get your book if you want to. So let me read you this, and it'll tee us up for the deprogram. The 1960s are remembered as an organic eruption of youth, music, and spiritual awakening. Assault on Aquarius asks a darker question. What if cultural upheaval was deliberately steered to derail a rising populist spirituality and prevent the promised age of Aquarius from ever arriving? Jeffrey Daugherty follows a disturbing alternative trail through the era's most iconic figures. He examines the destruction surrounding Elvis Presley and his mother Gladys. That's very key. He examines the psychological pressures brought to bear upon the Beatles and the strange trauma centered on Paul McCartney. Events interpreted through the shadowy histories of MK Ultra, Tavistock, and modern mind control. From there, the investigation goes into the Paul is dead mystery and the Manson event, asking whether both belong to a larger campaign, an assault on not merely musicians or movements, but on human consciousness itself. And I like how I framed this at the end. It says, this is not nostalgia, it's a warning. If the cultural dark lords acted once, could they act again? And would we even recognize it before it was too late? That's the reasons for writing the book. That's the reasons for this deprogram tonight. And Claudette says Elvis helped women and men know it was okay to have feelings. And I agree with that. And basically, what we're looking at, we're going to look real quickly. We're not going to try to do a over 200-page book here tonight. Don't get upset or worried about that. But we're going to touch briefly on the cultural false flag. We're going to touch on Elvis Presley and MK Ultra mind control. We'll touch on the Beatles and Paul is Dead. We'll go into Manson's murdery mystery theater, and we'll kind of bring some final words to let you understand what was going on. But the whole idea is that the 1960s were actually a cultural false flag. Now, what do you mean by that? Well, you understand what a false flag is. A false flag, the term initially meant something like the Gulf of Tonkin, which was Jim Morrison's dad, by the way. He was the admiral, and he was in command of the force that included the USS Maddox. And of course, a Abrahamic nation fired upon a U.S. vessel. They said it was the Vietnamese and used that as justification to start the Vietnam War. But a false flag originally was a naval term, and it's where they would fly a false flag. If they were from Britain, they'd put a French flag. If they were from Spain, they'd put an English jack on there, a Union Jack. So they would make the people that suffered their attack think that they were from somewhere else. To my knowledge, that term false flag has never been applied before to a cultural event. But yet, it is my assertion that what I call the assault on Aquarius was an organized and carefully planned agenda that unfolded upon an unsuspecting public beginning in the 50s and rolled right on through the 60s. And the only way to really accurately describe it is to call it a cultural false flag. Because everything that was done aligns with the idea of what a false flag is. And a false flag is defined as covert operations designed to deceive in such a way that the operators appear as though they're being carried out by somebody else. That's what a false flag is. And in this deep program tonight, just briefly touching it, but in the book especially, I bring compelling evidence that events and actions exactly consistent with a false flag were waged against specific private citizens, first of all, and they were waged against these specific private citizens that were leading what was, if they hadn't jumped in, what was going to be an explosion of human spirituality. That's why they targeted Elvis Presley. That's why they targeted Paul McCartney and the Beatles. Somebody mentioned Jim Morrison. I don't doubt that at all. But in my view, the aim of this cultural false flag was to present a mass cultural awakening. And the culture false flag of the 60s was specifically designed to prevent an explosion of human spirituality. And the reason I wrote the book is because I want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And if it does, we're able to see it. So the assault on Aquarius started long before the 50s. Some of the seeds were in the 1940s and even beyond. I touch on some of the what I call the bright lights of the New Age, people like Madame Blavatsky. She didn't get everything right, but she got a lot of things right. I talk about Edgar Cayce. Edgar Cayce, according to Wikipedia, was the true founder of the New Age, and he brought a lot of truth too. Didn't get it always right, but some of the big highlights are that the Tavistock Institute was created, folks, to carry out exactly these kind of events. And the Tavistock Institute, being centered in Britain, especially had particular effect on Paul McCartney and the Beatles. Now, in the United States, I understand that MK Ultra and Tavistock mind control and all of these intelligence agencies are really one intelligence agency. Then you really need to do some studying. MK Ultra was organized by the CIA and its predecessor, which was called, what was the predecessor of the CIA called? It slips my mind. I want to say Office of Special Investigations. No, that was the Air Force intelligence agency, but it had another name. Then they switched it into the MK Ultra program, but it was organized through the Scientific Intelligence Division of the CIA. It was mainly headed by the U.S. Army, which looms large in the Elvis Presley discussion. There were 80 institutions, 44 colleges and universities that were actively involved in MK Ultra mind control research. The Tavistock Institute started in 1946. And put yourself back in the late 50s and the early 60s. We were in an Ozzie and Harriet culture. The man went to work, OSS, thank you, you're right. Office of Special Services. The man went to work, he came home, and the woman better damn well have dinner on the table. Everybody went to church. Things were very, very patriarchal. And that's the way that it was. Now, all of a sudden, onto the scene burst Elvis Presley. He recorded his first demo record on January 8th of 1935. And within 3 short years after that demo he actually made for his mother, he became the largest selling recording artist in all of history. And his first song was called Heartbreak Hotel. Isn't that interesting? He went on the Steve Allen Show, and then he really hit it big when he went on the Ed Sullivan Show. He goes on the Ed Sullivan Show. He was paid $50,000 in 1956. That was, $5 million today. So Presley then made a movie, and in 1956, Billboard magazine reported that Elvis had placed more records in the top 100 than any other artist in a single year ever since they started keeping records. So Elvis sold $22 million worth of records in 1956. Can you even imagine that money? Can you even imagine that money? Somebody was talking about Elvis stealing black music. That's not accurate. Just because you sing a song that somebody else wrote, that's not stealing music. And if singers only sang songs they wrote, there'd be a whole lot less songs. So that's inaccurate information. I feel like I needed to clear that up. But Sam Phillips, who was the owner of Sun Records, where Elvis recorded his first records, he said that the reason he signed Elvis was because Elvis was a white man that sounded black. So Elvis definitely helped break down cultural barriers between black people and white people. I know Martin Luther King gets all the credit, but Elvis Presley was really the man that seeded in the minds of Americans that a person should be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skins. That wasn't a Martin Luther King thing. That was an Elvis thing. And Martin Luther King could sing a whole lot better, or Elvis could sing a whole lot better than Martin Luther King. His music transcended color, and that kind of prompted Americans for the first time to start thinking, you know what? Maybe this idea of cultural colorblindness isn't a bad thing. I'm a white guy, obviously. You look up white guy in the dictionary, you see my picture. But I'm not one of these people that says, if you ain't white, you ain't right. I love my people. I do everything I can to help optimize the white race. But as a white guy, there's not too much I can do with for black folks. I don't know how to be a strong, powerful, optimized black man because I've never been a black man. I never been a black man. Gilly, please give it a break, bro. I appreciate you commenting, but when you start distracting the deprogram, then I get a little testy. Elvis sounded black, and Elvis really was responsible for helping us start to ask, hey, maybe I can't help red, yellow, brown, or black people optimize too much because I don't know. I don't know their culture. I don't understand what they need to do. I mean, there's basic things, but they also face big problems. They also face big problems. They really do. And these are problems I'm not aware of. So I think the best idea is for each of the races, red, yellow, black, white, brown, for all of us to work hard on optimizing our own selves first, and then to work hard in optimizing our people. And when the white guys help optimize the whites, and the blacks and browns and reds and yellows help optimize their people, and humanity, each race becomes optimized, then the human race can be optimized. Now, this gets me in trouble in some circles. Jeff, these people are bad. These people are trash. These people are this. These people are that. Listen, I'm from the dirty South. My people are from Kentucky and Tennessee. I grew up in Florida. And I can tell you right now, there's a reason for the term white trash. There's a reason. There are people within every single race that are trashy. Red, yellow, black, brown, white. Those are just categories that make it easy to think. There are people that are trashy in every one of those races. There are trashy white people. That's why this term white trash came about. There are trashy black people, brown people, red people, and yellow people too. But you know what else I've discovered? I've discovered that there's also great people that are black. There's great people that are brown. There's great people that are red. There's great people that are yellow. There are great people that are black. They have their problems, but there are good, quality, great people in every single race. And I would much rather stand shoulder to shoulder and work with a black, brown, red, or yellow person that has reasoned their way out of the Judeo-Christian fear and guilt, blood magic. I don't know if I can say that on TikTok, mind control matrix, than a lily white, uptight white person that has turned their back on their people and is willing to shoot non-Christians in the back and kick them into a lake of fire with a smile on their face. I don't want to work with those people. Martin Luther King, I have a dream today. And interesting, the very first sermon I ever preached was at a black church. And my title was, I too have a dream. And I still have that dream. Kirsten, please be careful. My dream is for all of the races to optimize themselves. And once we optimize ourselves, we'll understand that it's not the black people, the brown people, the red people, or the yellow people, I speak as a white guy, that are our enemies. Because in reality, we live on a plantation right now. You may not know it, but we still live on a plantation. That early clip showed that. And we live on a plantation that has different slave houses. There's a slave house for the reds, the blacks, the browns, the yellows, the whites. We all have our slave house. And the guys that live on the top of the hill in the big house, they sit up there safe and secure because they convince the white slaves to fight the black slaves, to fight the brown slaves, to fight the red slaves, to fight the yellow slaves. And if we would stop fighting each other, concentrate on building and optimizing our own races. And I understand sometimes we got to handle some business. If we get attacked, we got to do what we got to do. But if we would optimize ourselves, join together, and march up that hill to kick those people out of the big house, take our land back, I'm still convinced there doesn't have to be a fight. People are always talking about, oh, there's got to be this war and there's got to be that war. That's nonsense. Because our enemies have always proven that they're cowards. And if they see a united front of humanity, of all races, marching against them, they will do what they've always done. They will turn tail and run like the cowards they are. And we could take back our world and move back into a golden age with no hot projectiles flying. That's my dream, and I think it is very, very reasonable. And in addition to challenging the hardcore racial barriers, and I still think we're best like nature when we live amongst ourselves and then have cultural interchange. You know, Muhammad Ali said, I want my kids to look like me. I want my grandkids to look like me. And I want to live with people that like what I like and like to eat what I eat and like to listen to what I like to listen to. And man, back in the day, that's the way we did it. And wow, it really, really worked. Now this Galatians 3:28, there's no race, there's no male, female. We're all one in plastic Jesus. Look where that's gotten us. But Elvis was also breaking down this idea that you had to be just so, and you couldn't be individualistic. You couldn't follow your own, march to your own drummer. You couldn't do that. You had to fit the mold. But here comes Elvis Presley doing what only he could do back then. And he started giving a sense of confidence, specifically to young people. It's okay to be who I am. It's okay to express my individuality. It's okay for me to dress the way I want to dress. It's okay for me to wear my hair the way I want to wear my hair. It's okay that if my dad was a plumber and his granddad was a plumber and his dad before him was a plumber, doesn't mean I got to be a plumber. It means I can do what I want to do. I can do what I want to do. I can be what I want to be. And Elvis Presley's music was kind of the first thing that sparked that realization within American youth. We don't have to do it the way our fathers did it. We don't have to do it the way our mothers did it. It's okay to be me. It's okay to be me. And he was the first great cultural champion of individualism and freedom of expression. He was also the first guy to say, look, I don't tell you who to worship. I don't tell you where to go to church. I don't tell you how to pray. I believe in God. I think you should too, but you should do it according to the dictates of your own conscience. That was revolutionary. And Elvis started all this. So Elvis was the lovable rebel on stage. He was the ultimate bad boy. He didn't put on a show. He was always just who he was. But off the stage, he was polite, patriotic, respectful, and a thoroughly likable young man. So much so that Ed Sullivan said, and of course Elvis' reputation was he's demonic. And it was the Christians that were against Elvis. The same ones watching Bob Joyce. He's demonic. He's horrible. He's breaking down morals. Because, the Bible says you can't even look at a woman and say, damn, she's hot. Woo! Because that's a sin. You know why Christianity wants you to think that's a sin? Because they don't want you to reproduce more people. that aren't Christians because they know they lose. But Elvis said, hey, dudes are supposed to be attracted to chicks. Chicks are supposed to be attracted to dudes. And Ed Sullivan said this about Elvis, and I want to read it. He said, and this was Ed Sullivan going out on a limb. Ed Sullivan said, I just want to say to Elvis Presley and the country that this is a real decent, fine boy. And wherever you go, Elvis, we want to say we've never had a big name on our show where we've ever had a pleasanter experience. So now let's have a tremendous hand for a very nice person. And when Ed Sullivan said that about Elvis Presley, man, the dark lords of culture were terrified. I believe that it was this widespread appeal to human goodness and potential that was still lying dormant within the American people, specifically our youth, is what put Elvis in the crosshairs of the dark cultural lords. And do you know that it was exactly, I want to get it exactly right, 2 days, 48 hours, 48 hours after Elvis Presley appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show, he was reclassified draft status 1 alpha, 1A. And within a month, he had been drafted and was on his way to Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. I don't want to tell you the whole book because we're not going to be here that long. But that went all the way up to Dwight D. Eisenhower, the great coward, one of the worst, most despicable humans that's ever breathed air. Dwight Eisenhower hated Elvis. Dwight Eisenhower, in my studied opinion, said, draft him, it'll ruin him. Draft him, it'll ruin him. So they drafted Elvis. And Elvis was offered special services, which means he would have gone around and sang at USO shows. And, he really wouldn't have been in the Army. But Elvis said, no, thank you. I want to be treated like every single other soldier. Elvis wound up driving tanks. Elvis wound up driving tanks. And a strange thing happened. The dark lords of culture drafted him thinking he would be petulant and ugly and that the kids would hate him because he bowed to the man and went into the Army. And the parents would continue to hate him because he showed he's just a bad person. But Elvis endured his entire 2-year tour, never asked for anything special, did it like a true soldier. And a funny thing happened. He became even more popular. Before, it was just the kids that loved him. Now, all of a sudden, the moms and dads of those girls that used to be worried about Elvis were loving Elvis because he showed himself to be a true, real, decent, genuine human. And the crowd that used to hate him, the over 30s, began to love him. So what the Dark Lords thought would destroy Elvis Presley just made him bigger. So they had a real problem on their hands. They had to do something. They had to do something quick. So they started to try to attack Elvis Presley with MK Ultra mind control, Tavistock mind control, but they did it energetically. And one thing you have to understand about modern mind control, we have the idea that MK Ultra and Tavistock always involves kidnapping somebody, strapping them into a chair, putting electrodes on their head, and initially it did. But they've discovered, even back in the 60s, how to energetically apply the same things. And they tried to do that to Elvis. but they couldn't break through. So what they decided to do was launch what is, in my opinion, I've studied this for thousands of hours, they launched an assault on Elvis Presley's mother. Elvis Presley, his mother, Gladys Presley, was the first civilian person that was attacked by energetic MK Ultra Tavistock mind control. And the reason they did it is because Gladys and Elvis had what can only be described as a supernatural connection. Well, Jeff, how do you know what you're talking about? Did you know Elvis? Nope, never met Elvis. Well, I'll tell you what I did do. I lived for 2 years as a roommate of Charlie Hodge. If you don't know who Charlie Hodge is, Charlie and Elvis had met briefly. Charlie was a gospel singer. But Charlie and Elvis met on the train from Memphis to Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. And from that day in 1956 until the day that Elvis died, Charlie and Elvis were never separated. They were in the same unit in Germany. When they got out of the service, Charlie moved into Graceland with Elvis. And Charlie was Elvis's best friend. And he was with him every single day and night for, notable exceptions if Charlie had to go do a gig or something. And Charlie was there every day until Elvis died. And then Vernon threw him out. Elvis's dad, that's another story. But one night we were sitting around. Actually, my buddy, my best friend since I was 14, worked with Charlie. And it was really Charlie and Gary that were friends. And I was just kind of the fly on the wall. But Charlie told us a story. One of their first tours when Elvis was out singing, they were driving along, going somewhere, and their car caught fire. Their car caught fire. Nobody got hurt, but the car caught fire, literally, burned up. You see those cars on the side of the road. And when they finally got back to the hotel, hello, Elderberry, Elvis called his mom, and she was freaking out. She says, "Oh, son, I saw you surrounded by flames." Gladys knew that Elvis was in a fire. That's remote viewing. That's empathy. Gladys was dialed in, and she's a dead ringer from Adam Blavatsky, too, which I find very, very interesting. So, and this was before Facebook and TikTok and YouTube and all this, so there's no way Gladys could have known. You could never put Elvis in a box, said Lily. Unfortunately, not quite true. We'll get to that. But what the MK Ultra Tavistock Mind Lords had figured out was that Gladys, his mother, was the rock of his world. And they had such a strong spiritual connection that they couldn't break through that. So what they decided to do was go after Gladys. And Gladys was a lady, Charlie relates this. I also was friends with the great J.D. Sumner, who sang "With the Real Low Way On Down" with Elvis. J.D. Sumner, who's still alive, fighting a battle, also a great friend of mine. So I know what I'm talking about when it comes to Elvis Presley, probably more than or as much as anybody still breathing air. But Gladys always worked hard to be cheerful and happy because Elvis could be kind of moody. So she never wanted to be the reason that Elvis would feel bad. He was kind of prone to depression a little bit. So what the Dark Lords decided to do was attack Gladys to take her down so they could get to Elvis. So what they did to Elvis was first draft him. They couldn't get to Elvis through that, but as soon as he left for Germany, Gladys fell into a really deep depression. Voiceover artist Eddie DeZine and Charlie told me that Gladys started suffering from a lot of weight gain. She started taking diet pills. She got lassitude, bloating, severe depression. She was terrified about Elvis in the military. And the stress and the alcohol and the pills and the depression led to a rapid deterioration of her health. In my view, and in the view of people I've talked to, including medical professionals, it was too rapid. There was something going on. And we now know today that these intelligence agencies possess the power to afflict injuries on people remotely. They call it the cancer gun, things like that. They can make people sick from afar. And Gladys Presley was the first person that they did this to. She also developed rapid onset hepatitis, which wasn't a thing until Gladys Presley got it. And this connection went both ways. August 14th, 1958, Elvis and Charlie came back from maneuvers. They're in the barracks. And Elvis got suddenly really worried about his mom. So he picked up the phone, he called home, took him a while to get through. And his dad answered the phone and said, "Son, I'm sorry, your mama's gone." Elvis literally had a physical collapse. It took almost a week before they could get him out of bed. And Charlie says that Elvis Presley was never the same after that. So the Dark Lords had landed a very strong blow. And Linda Thompson, who was the true love of Elvis's life, once told me that, and she and he broke up about 75, maybe 76. And she told me that Elvis would cry every night tears for his mother. And having just lost my dad, I can understand that. And every single person, whether it's Charlie, J.D. Sumner, James Burton, says that Elvis Presley never recovered. He never recovered. I've met Lisa Marie. She was so much fun. She probably had the dirtiest mouth I've ever heard on a woman. But she was actually a good person. So Gladys Presley was the first victim of MK Ultra Tavistock mind control that was projected energetically. It's no secret why they transferred him to Germany. That was the head of the Army's MK Ultra program. And after Gladys died, Charlie Hodge literally swore on a Bible. Charlie was a Christian. It meant something to him. He literally swore on a Bible, and he was with Elvis every day. He said that Elvis Presley very rarely drank alcohol. He'd smoke those little cigars. But Elvis very rarely drank alcohol. And Elvis Presley never touched a drug until he got out of that bed after Gladys had died. He was so depressed, he was falling asleep on duty. So he started taking amphetamines. I guess you'd call it meth, right? He started taking that to stay awake. And Charlie said that's the first time that Elvis ever touched drugs. And that started the demise of Elvis Presley. They killed his mother. This was the assault on Aquarius, the first assault on Aquarius. They killed his mom. He called her Satinin, which is kind of weird. And this opened an aperture in Elvis Presley that the Dark Lords could leverage. They had access to him. And all of a sudden, Elvis became as sick as his mother. And I know that the media wants you to think that Elvis was a druggie and that Elvis was a big fat guy that sat around and ate whole cartons of ice cream and banana sandwiches. He did like that stuff, but I want you to know that doctors, multiple doctors, thank you, AU, diagnosed Elvis Presley with the following ailments. One dude had all these ailments. Now, I know I say I'm House MD, House MDiv, but you don't have to be Dr. House to understand that there is no way in hell that one man could get all of these ailments within 6 months. But within 6 months, Elvis began to suffer from heart disease. He'd had at least 5 heart attacks verified before the one that ultimately killed him. He had developed cancer of the liver. He developed bone cancer. He had developed something that I can't really say, erythematose or something like that, erythmiatos something. He got systemic lupus. He got hypertension, high blood pressure. He had diabetic insomnia, so there's a reason for the weird schedule. He had cluster migraine headaches. He had an enlarged and obstructed colon and clinical constipation. And another big lie is that Elvis had a junkie's colon, because when people start taking large amount of drugs, it causes their colon to become paralyzed. But Elvis Presley was born with this, what was it called? It was called a chronically obstructed colon. He was born with a deformed colon, the same deformed colon that our friend Jim, whose mom just happened to be dating Elvis. I'll let you connect the dots. He had multiple compressed spinal fractures. And all of his guys would tell me that there were nights that Elvis was in such agony that he could barely get on stage. But he would never, ever cancel a show because he's like, Charlie, man, this might be the first time they've ever seen me. They've spent their money. They came out here. I can't let them down. So the man regularly performed with a broken back. Whatever you've heard and think about Elvis Presley, maybe these will give you a new perspective. He had severe artery deterioration, also chronic, suppressed immune system. And there's no way that one man could develop all of these. I forgot to let Jim know about tonight. No way one man could develop all these in such a short time. He was attacked by MK Ultra and Tavistock, energetic, mind control, and physical debilitation. Long story short, he wanted to go back to live performing. He didn't. He wound up in Hollywood making those stupid movies. And he was over as a force of cultural change. There was a brief shining moment in 1968 with the comeback special. The book goes into how Colonel Parker, it does sound like that, Uncle, and he probably did. You know, that's a really good point, because they had to put some type of tech into him so they could target the frequencies. That's a really good point. Thank you, Uncle. Where was I going with this? Oh, I think I prove in the book that Colonel Parker was an MK Ultra, Tavistock mind control controller of Elvis. The man had jumped ship in Holland, came over to the U.S., literally jumped off the ship, swam to shore, changed his name. He was wanted in connection with a murder in Holland. He was very, very controllable, and he wound up in charge of Elvis Presley. There's no doubt in my mind that the colonel was putting stuff in his food, his water. Elvis Presley was controlled by Colonel Parker, an MK Ultra controller. Also, Priscilla Presley's dad was a Navy pilot that got killed. So Priscilla was an orphan. Elvis was a twin. You know about him, how MK Ultra loves those things. And then Priscilla's stepdad was a U.S. Air Force intelligence officer. He was in charge of special operations. And Colonel Bellew sent his assistant to find out where Elvis used to hang out in Germany. And then Colonel Bellew, I don't care how you say it, he sent his assistant with his 14-year-old daughter to seduce Elvis Presley. Lily says impossible. Truth is stranger than fiction. And the rest of that story is history. So Elvis is off the scene as a force of cultural change. But do you know that almost to the day that Elvis started making those stupid movies, guess who was born. And let me just touch on this. Is Donald Trump Elvis? No, that's stupid. But we did a whole deep program on this. It's called Return of the King. You can find it on the channel, the YouTube channel. There's a possibility that Donald Trump might be Jesse Guerin Presley, Elvis's twin that supposedly died in childbirth. I'm not the first one to talk about this. There was another place called Celebrity Something that said that there's talk that Jesse survived and he would act as a body double for Elvis. So it's possible that maybe Donald Trump could be Jesse Guerin, but he's not Elvis Presley. So just file that one away in the trash can. Bob Joyce is not Elvis Presley. File that away in the trash can. And Elvis Presley is dead. Dead, dead, dead. James saw him die. J.D. Sumner saw him die. And Charlie Hodge was the first man on the scene when Elvis lay dead, blue as that poster behind me, in the shag carpet in the bathroom in Graceland. I'm one of the few people that's been in there because Charlie took us in several times. Elvis is dead. There's no doubt about it. Elvis is dead, no doubt about it. But almost to the day that Elvis was neutered for all intents and purposes and went to Hollywood and made a bunch of stupid movies, the Beatles were born. It was almost like the universe wasn't content to let Aquarius die. And I think there's a lesson there for us, because it doesn't matter what these dark lords try to do, there will always be hope if we'll just realize who we are and be who we are. Stand up. I'm going to grab a drink. Now, I don't know which one of you, but one of you saw me drinking these zero sugar drinks because I'm losing weight like an Ethiopian weight victim. I weigh less than I weighed when I got out of the Air Force in 1987. Unbelievable. Priscilla was definitely a honeypot, Bella. Thank you, Steamy Luck. I'm going to drink them as long as I want to drink them because they taste good. Don't be texting people and saying, oh, Jeff is drinking drinks that got aspartame in them. I know it's got aspartame in it, and I still like it. Why a person couldn't pick up the phone and text me. But anyway, who cares about that? But the Beatles, when they first came out, you may not know this, the Beatles actually were raising the consciousness of the people with their music. You don't know this, but you didn't study this for thousands of hours like I did. But the Beatles played their music at 432 hertz. All of their original music up to the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band was played in 432, which raises human consciousness, which puts us in a good frame of mind, which helps to optimize us. And the Beatles were playing in 432 intentionally because most music at the time was at 440, which does not harmonize with the human body. It does not harmonize with cosmic movement. No space is not fake in Jose. It does not harmonize with any natural vibration. But the Beatles were intentionally playing at 432 megahertz or 432 hertz. And they were intentionally trying to raise, I mean, you remember the early songs. I Want to Hold Your Hand, Help, happy music. Happy music. Written by Lennon and McCartney. Were they great guys? They had their problems, but at least they were trying to raise human consciousness intentionally. So even though Elvis was off the playing field, The Beatles stepped up. And could you imagine if Elvis and the Beatles were together? And they were once. They were once. Study it, Matthew. You know I don't spoon feed. Look it up. They were once, and maybe I'll get to that, but it's in the book. But 432 is the frequency of health, harmony, peace. And the Beatles intentionally moved from 440 down to 432. And if you want to read up more on this, there's a lady, she doesn't like me, but she did some good work. I don't even know if her blog's still up. It's called plasticmaca, MACCA.blogspot.com. You can check it out there. If you didn't hear it, you can rewind after the show. And even musicologist, what was his name? Brian something or other. I can't remember his name. It's in the book. He even said that Elvis had been leveraged to break down and that the Beatles picked up where Elvis left off. 4,000 people greet them. They went on the Ed Sullivan Show, 73 million viewers, the biggest TV audience until Elvis did Aloha from Hawaii. And the Beatles were picking up where Elvis left off. And I'll tell the story. There was one night in Bel Air, California. It was August of 1965. Elvis was out there making another stupid movie. He was getting upset. He was tired of the nonsense. The famous quote Charlie said was he told Hal Wallace, who was the producer, and I'll try to do an Elvis impression. When these movies cease to be fun, we'll cease to be doing them. And they had ceased to be fun. This was 65, so just a couple years before the comeback special. And the Beatles showed up at Elvis's house. The Beatles showed up at Elvis's house out there in Hollywood area. And Charlie was there. He tells the story. Elvis was sitting in a chair. You know, we greeted him. He sat down in his big chair. We all have one. And Elvis was really shocked when George, Paul, John, and Ringo, they all sat on the floor around his feet. These guys literally worshiped Elvis Presley. I know you're taught the Beatles hated Elvis, Elvis hated the Beatles, and it's kind of like an unwritten rule. If you like Elvis, you can't like the Beatles. If you like Beatles, you can't like Elvis. Oh, that was for Uncle, whoever. It applies to everybody. I used to get in trouble. Jeff, where do I find? Look it up. Blame my dad. Dad, how do you spell? Look it up. That's why I'm a great speller. That's why I'm a great speller. So the four guys sit down at Elvis's feet, literally. And there's this long, awkward silence. Charlie was standing off, and Elvis says, well, boys, if you ain't going to talk, I'll go back and read a book. They all laugh. They're talking. They're having a great time. And I'm one of maybe 10 people on planet Earth that have heard this. They're sitting there laughing, and all of a sudden, John looks over and sees one of Elvis's guitars on a stand in the corner. And John's like, Mr. Presley, can I please play your guitar? And Elvis said, if you stop calling me Mr. Presley, you can play with my wife. Terrible Elvis impression, but. So John grabs the guitar. Elvis grabs a guitar. They didn't have any left-handed bassists, so Paul just joined him in voice. Ringo's bop, 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 on the tabletop. And for the next about hour and 45 minutes, Elvis Presley and the Beatles were jamming. Could you imagine being there that night? Well, I've heard a recording of it. And it still brings up chill bumps on my arms when I think about it. Charlie had a recording. And then Charlie describes how Elvis and John disappeared, went back into Elvis's room, which was very unusual. And Paul and Ringo were playing pool with the other guys on the pool table. And John and Elvis were in his bedroom for damn near an hour talking. John and Elvis come out, and Charlie said, I looked at Elvis, and right away I could see something was different. Something was different. And Elvis walked out of that room, took Colonel Parker by his nasty old Hawaiian shirt and T-shirt that he always wore. Yeah, I met Colonel Parker. He backed him up against the wall and he said, listen here, you fat sumbitch. Here's what we're going to do. You're getting me out of these stupid movies, and you're going to get me a TV special, and we're going to go back on stage. And if you don't like it, you can get your fat ass out here right now. Charlie said it's the only time he ever saw the Colonel at a loss for words. A couple of years later, Elvis was out of the movies. Suspicious Minds was recorded. We can go on together with suspicious minds. Kentucky Rain, In the Ghetto, If I Can Dream, all those were recorded, all of those smash hits. The best work Elvis had done in years. The Beatles and Elvis were back on top at the same time. Man, I get chills. My chill bumps got chill bumps. And then somehow it leaked out. Colonel Parker was there. Technology was probably still in Elvis Presley. And all of a sudden, almost immediately after that, it's all in the book in great detail, comes Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band. That was the Beatles' Elvis Goes to Hollywood moment. The Beatles abandoned 432 Music. They're the biggest band in the world. They had to hire people to count their money. And they stopped doing what made them famous. They went back to 440 tuning. They started doing all kind of crazy stuff musically. It's all in the book. Recording Sgt. Pepper's took 700,000 hours. They insisted that everything be different, according to the recording engineer, Jeff Emmerich. Why did the Beatles suddenly stop trying to uplift consciousness? And why did they go back to frequencies that cause aggression, psychosocial agitation, and emotional distress? Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band killed the signature sound that had been lifting the spirits and the spiritual frequency of a generation. Why? Bella says the real Paul was gone. That's the Paul is dead theory. I don't really agree with that, Bella. I'm going to share with you why. Briefly, it's in the book. Within 2 years, the Paul is dead rumor broke. The Paul is dead rumor, as Bella kind of broke there, was that Paul McCartney died in an auto crash. He was replaced by a double who was not Jesse Guerin Presley. And it got on this college radio station in Detroit. It was picked up in several magazines. And all of a sudden, a mainstream radio station, WKNR-FM, started broadcasting this idea that Paul McCartney was dead and he was replaced by a double. Paul McCartney finally addressed it in '69, and he said, I haven't been around much lately. I haven't done enough. I'm happy to be with my family. But Bella, was Paul really dead? Well, Paul McCartney has certainly become very, very different. Tina Foster, kind of the queen of the Paul is dead movement, said that Paul was replaced by a double. The first time we saw him in public was, and you can't make this stuff up, the first time that the supposed Paul double was seen in public was in 1966 in Memphis, Tennessee, the home of Elvis. Can you believe that? And that's interesting, Dead Wolf, because it wasn't Dead Wolf. Who was it? Claudette. One of Elvis' intimates asked me to write 5 scripts for Netflix. He has a walk-in deal with Netflix. He can get anything done he wants done. And he wanted me to write these scripts for something he wanted to call, and I was going to do it, and we decided to call it Elvis OG. And he thought, Claudette, in opposition to what you're saying, that all the young people have forgotten about Elvis. But Claudette's telling me the young people today love Elvis. I'm very happy to hear that. I even talked with the great Dean Z about this. No, I didn't. I wanted to talk to him, but I didn't. And James wanted me to write this Elvis OG, and he wanted me to bring out, there's going to be a Netflix series. I've walked away from money, folks. I had a $100,000 check in my hand if I'd quit being the Christian whistleblower about 9 years ago, and I refused it. But he wanted to bring out all the dark sides of Elvis, show he was the original gangsta. And I was going to do it, but something in my spirit said, if you do that, you'll ruin Elvis's reputation. And I'm so glad to hear you say that, Claudette, because the idea was, let's get into the younger generation. But I didn't do it. He wasn't real happy with me, but it is what it is. So what really happened to Paul McCartney? There was a forensic study done in Italy that compared Paul McCartney's facial features before 1965 and after. And there's medical changes there's changes in Paul McCartney's face that are impossible to explain with medical science. Impossible. In fact, they're the opposite of what you would expect with either cosmetic surgery or aging. And they can't be explained by medical science. Paul McCartney was absent for a great many years, very rarely in the press, and he was absent for almost a year and a half. Nobody saw him. Could he have been taken to Tavistock? Could he have been applied with direct electrodes and stuff? Probably. But it's my opinion, Bella, that the physical changes in Paul McCartney that are at the root of the Paul is dead theory are even more elegantly explained by what I call temporal phasing. I believe by that time, after their work on Gladys Presley, after the work on Elvis Presley, and it's in the book, greatly detailed, that they had perfected the ability to not only assault people energetically, but they could literally warp people across time and space. And if you could warp a man across time and space, changes in eye color, changes in height, he suddenly grew about 4 inches, changes in his lips that are antithetical to medical science, the exact opposite. Those are the least things you can expect. And I have a hard time buying that they found a double that could write, sing, and play like one of the greatest musicians in the history of humanity. I'm convinced that Paul McCartney was targeted and attacked by temporal phasing by MK Ultra and Tavistock mind control. Plastic surgery doesn't explain it. Aging doesn't explain it. Changes in his eyes, changes in his eyebrows that are medically impossible. And I think it was this temporal attack his lips, that caused him to undergo these physical changes that we've seen in Paul McCartney. And to do so overnight. Paul's not dead, in my opinion. There's a better explanation. And interestingly, Paul McCartney's physical transformation occurred in just about exactly the same time, a little bit faster even, than the changes in Gladys Presley. What other clues do we have that Paul might have suffered this? Well, out of the blue, Paul admits that he started taking LSD. You can't spell MK Ultra without LSD. (1967). He admitted it. Gladys Presley was killed. She wasn't replaced by a double. Elvis Presley was neutered. He wasn't replaced by a double. And in the book, I go into great detail that Paul McCartney's changes, could they have resulted from a similar assault as we saw leveled at Gladys and Elvis? Oh, Jama brings up Michael Jackson. Wow. Very, very likely. Of course, LSD is part of the MK Ultra package. It's my assertion, Bella, that Paul's not dead. He's deconstructed, he's demolished, and he's damn lucky he survived. I think that Paul's even aware of what happened to him finally. And I think that that was the conversation that John and Elvis had for that hour in Elvis's bedroom. I think Elvis told John what had happened to him. I think that Elvis warned John that it was going to happen to them. And when John saw these changes in Paul, John knew. And when you get a chance, pull up a song from John Lennon called Beautiful Boy. I think that details John knowing and talking about the MK assault on Paul McCartney. And then in one of the great Easter eggs of all time, Paul was on this show called Desert Island Discs. And they asked him, that's the same year the Church of Satan was established. Yep, it's part of the package. It's in the book. Deep dive on Anton LaVey is also in the book. John was responsible for the album cover art. I go deep into Abbey Road, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Strawberry Fields. John knew. We go into Magical Mystery Tour. John knew. And he was telling people through the album covers and through the song Let It Be, Beautiful Boy, or Let It Be album was in there. And I just don't buy the replacement thing. How do you learn Paul's singing voice? How do you master his bass playing? How do you match his songwriting? How do you fool the other Beatles for years and years and years? To believe that Paul McCartney was replaced by a double, we have to believe that a double wrote and sang Hey Jude, Let It Be. Maybe I'm amazed at the way you love me all the time. I can't get up there like Paul. It's too much of a reach for me, especially knowing there's a better explanation via Paul's MK Ultra assault. John dropped a lot of clues there in the book. I'm just scrolling through. John even kind of winked at the Paul is dead theory, kept it alive. And Paul McCartney became a vegan. I'm not for that. He became an animal lover, lends his likeness and name to animal causes. I think that Paul McCartney of today is a guy that was doing all he can to try to make up for what he did when he was under MK Ultra mind control assault. And as soon as Paul got straight, he left the Beatles because he couldn't be a part of that anymore. He started the band Wings, and guess what happened? He was a man on the run. Man on the run. He was. And if you watch his last appearance on Saturday night with Will Ferrell, he sings a song in there that I played a while back. It's talking about this. It's talking about this. And I think that explains the Paul is dead theory. Paul's not dead. He was just demolished, and he's doing his best to right the wrongs. And I keep hoping I'll get a phone call from Paul McCartney. I almost met him real close. My buddy was doing a special for James or J.D. Sumner, or for James Burton. And Paul was supposed to be there, and I was going to go and meet him, look him in those eyes. Paul got sick. We know it was called Band on the Run. We were being funny. Didn't get the chance. But anyway, Gladys Presley, Elvis Presley, fall equals false Paul. Right, I should have said that. Paul starts Wings, goes back to 432. These things don't happen. They're clues. Then comes, and I have to be careful with this, then comes Manson's Mystery Theater. 1969. Kind of the death blow. The final assault, the final phase of assault on Aquarius. You know the players, Sharon Tate, Roman Polanski. But a guy you don't know so much about is Jay Sebring. He was also supposedly stopped breathing that night. His partner in business was a man named Larry Geller. Larry Geller leveraged his way to become Elvis's hairdresser. And let's say that both Jay and Larry were practitioners of an alternative lifestyle. We'll just leave it at that. And Larry became Elvis's de facto spiritual guru. And Larry was partners with Jay Sebring, started the first hair salon for men in LA. Everybody that was somebody, Frank Sinatra, Kirk Douglas, Sammy Davis Jr., they even did black hair. Go down the list. They all were getting their hair cut by Jay Sebring and Larry Geller. And I've interviewed Larry 4 or 5 times. Larry Geller probably joined Colonel Parker and Priscilla as handlers for Elvis Presley. Who knows what Larry was putting in the hair coloring that Elvis got done every single week. Larry was at that house on Cielo Drive where the Manson event occurred many times, and I think he was there that night. I can't prove it, but I think he was there that night. But you know what happened with the Manson story? But it's all in the book in great detail, but let me just say this. The Manson Mystery Theater was directed by a guy named Roman Polanski, who had just finished a movie called Rosemary's Baby. Maybe you've heard of it. Maybe you understand what it entailed. He also had just worked on a movie called The Fearless Vampire Killers. And it's interesting you say that, Jay Mars, because Elvis took the same packet of medication every single night for years, and all of a sudden one night it kills him. I know that can happen, but Charlie and I have our doubts. And it just came to me that Charlie mentioned that Elvis had played racquetball that day. I don't know if Jim was there. We might have to ask Jim next time we talk to him on, what is this, Sunday? We'll talk to him on Wednesday. Elvis had played racquetball. And if I remember Charlie clearly, Larry had touched up his hair and sideburns. Uncle brings up a good point. He says that he thinks that Charlie Manson was MK Ultra. I actually don't think so, Uncle, because in the book we go into great detail. Those people involved in the Manson Mystery Theater didn't have to be MK Ultra mind control because they were all actors. They were all willing participants. But Polanski was an associate with Anton LaVey. We talked about that. Church of Satan starting at the same time. But there's so much in the book. So much in the book. But I'll bottom line it for you. Charles Manson had been to that house many times. Charles Manson was financed by Abigail Folger of Folger's Coffee. Charlie's driving around town in a red Ferrari because bums that just got out of prison always have money for red Ferraris. Abigail Folger was also relieved of her breath that night in this yellow house. And I tell you in the book how to go and see and view the pictures. And if you look at the pictures with an open mind, you'll see that nobody was deprived of their breath that night. It was all a movie set. It was all a movie production. Nobody was deprived of their breath that night on Cielo Drive in 69, right? Jay Sebring was there. Larry Geller was there. Abigail Folger was there. Her boyfriend, long Polish name, I can't remember right now. It's all in the book, and man, is it deep. But if you look at the pictures and you look at them, you have to look at more than one picture because the first pictures they show you, like Sassafras says, they're clearly posed. She wasn't even deprived of her breath. Supposedly, rigor mortis had set in. Those photos were taken about 12 hours after the supposed unbreathing of those people. Yet Sharon Tate was moved and posed in multiple positions. That doesn't happen after rigor. The pictures that come up first show her all smeared with blood and guts and stuff. The other pictures show that her bra wasn't even really dirty. Some of them show her topless for sensational value. There was even a movie made called Jay Sebring Cutting to the Truth, Really? That said that Jay survived that night. I think this is kosher disclosure. Kosher disclosure. And why did they talk about this? And there was a guy there that night that actually survived. There was two guys that survived because they were supposedly wasted in the guest house. But this dude was so lucky that he not only survived one Manson event, he survived two of them. Refused to testify. In my opinion, he was paid off. Sharon Tate's dad was in the U.S. Army, and guess what he was? He was a U.S. Army intelligence officer And he was assigned to the headquarters of Project Gladio. You know what Project Gladio did as Rooney walks out of the bathroom? Project Gladio crafted false flags in Europe, and then they brought it to the United States and called it Project Chaos. Every single one of the players in the Manson event also had a hair salon with Jay Sebring. It was fake. It never happened. And I prove it in the book. If you read the book, you'll have no doubt. They're all faked. Why were they faked? You also want to go to Miles Mathis. Just Google Miles Mathis. He does a great breakdown on this. August 9th, the day the Manson event occurred, same day that the atom bomb was dropped on Nagasaki, same day that the Temple of Jerusalem was destroyed in AD 70. 9 in Kabbalistic magic means end of a cycle, judgment, a harvest of consequences. In tarot, it represents the hermit, which means withdrawal, hidden knowledge, and after action, reflection. August is the power month and occult framing, named for Caesar Augustus. Sharon Tate was cast in the Virgin Mary role, also the Diana role. They covered all their bases. Did I mention her dad directed False Flags for a living? Bruce Lee was involved in more ways than one with Jay Sebring. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. If you look at the house, it looks like a crack den, and it's supposed to be the home of one of the most famous directors and famous actresses of the day. They put trashy furniture in there because they were going to trash it and throw it away. The trial was a joke. During the trial, the judge actually held up a paper with a headline that says Nixon declares Manson's guilty. No mistrial. Angela Lansbury's daughter was one of Charlie's girls. She had a note that she carried around from Angela, said it's okay for her to be here. All of them were arrested before the event and got off scot-free. All of them were drama actors in high school. There's so much, folks. There's so much. We go through the Sharon Tate photos. We go through the Jay Sebring photos. We go through the house photos. And more than one person has said that the Manson event was the thing that killed the 1960s. The Manson event was the culmination of the assault on Aquarius. There's absolutely no doubt about it for objective, inquiring minds. No doubt about it. It's amazing that we haven't seen it until now. It changed the world. It made us all afraid. And that's the story of the assault on Aquarius. That's the story of assault on Aquarius. The second book, which is almost halfway done, is the assault on Camelot. and it deals almost exclusively with the JFK event, hint, hint, in Dallas, and his connections, amazing connections to a guy that we can't talk about on these platforms. As Jameis says, the assault on Aquarius killed the 1960s spiritual renewal and awakening. A lot of great comments in the chat about deeper things that are all in the book. Sharon Tate pretending to be her sister. That's because she had to do something. She had to do something. It was a cultural false flag. Claudette says that her sister was even afraid to leave the house. It was crazy. Crazy. Things like Charlie's parole officer adopted one of his kids. Parole officers don't do that. And in 1967, he's a parole officer. In 1968, he's a medical doctor opening a drug clinic up in San Francisco. How did he get all of that in 1 year? Or why was a medical doctor working as a parole officer? None of it adds up. I don't know if Manson ever spent a day in real jail. Doesn't look like it. All of this stuff is in the book. The book is Assault on Aquarius. It is now available at thebookpatch.com. Just search in the search bar for Assault on Aquarius. It's $19.95. If you want a signed copy, email me. Throw in an extra $10 to cover postage, and I'll get it to you. And that's about all I got. I will open up the phone lines. If anybody wants to call, I just ask you to be polite. I ask you to be interesting, and I ask you to be platform compliant. Hell, I'll even put up the phone number. There you go. 913-228-2586. 913-228-2586. If you're watching on TikTok, we will have a esoteric hot box tonight where I come to you from the Relax far infrared sauna. You can talk to me if you want. I'll bring you up if you let me know in the chat. 913-228-2586. If you have any questions, if you have any answers. I'm not going to wait long because remember, I've been up since 6:30 and that's very unusual for me. But there you go. If you want rods, hold on, Jim. Let me share the screen. It's taking its sweet time. Okay, Jim, thanks for calling. Talk to us.
All right. You know, you brought the subject up about the colon thing between me and Elvis, but my named father, I just never said this to you, never liked me.
Oh, no.
He whooped my ass every chance he got. And when I turned 15, I lied to tell him I was 16 and I bought some golden gloves, and he saw me do what I did to the guy in front of me. Then he started putting pistols on me.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And of course, I walked into him with a pistol, and I said, go and put it right to my forehead. I said, let it go. I said, and that's a bunch of things I'm not going to go into. But anyway, we lived in an apartment complex when I was, I guess, about 9 or 10. And a couple times a week, went through little spells to where Elvis and all those guys would be on motorcycles, and they'd go around to the apartment complex that I lived in. And a few times, I mean, I never went out there to see him. He just happened to be coming up as I was there in front of my apartment. And Elvis would always stop and look at me and smile, and then go on. And I'm going like, well, I don't know why he's being so nice to everybody, but he just would stop right there for me when he saw me, and just look at me and smile and go on.
Very interesting.
Anyway, yeah. And on Ringo, I don't know if I told you this or not, but there's a nightclub I used to go into quite often. And there was a guy in there with a group of people. They looked like Ringo. Okay, that guy looks a lot like Ringo. Of course, I didn't even think it was him. And this guy keeps staring at me, which, he started locking eyes on me. He's going to automatically piss me off. So he kind of walked by and kind of brushed against my shoulder. When he did, and I said, "Oh, you MFer." And I turned around and said, "No, I got to be good. I want to have a good time tonight." So he stops at that table with the guy that looks like Ringo and starts picking on Ringo, the guy that I thought was Ringo. And he was like trying to push a fight for this guy. I go like, what an ass. I said, I don't need none of this. So right in the middle of it, because that guy asked me, said, please walk away from me. And I just caught the guy by the throat, slammed down to the ground, and I bounced his head off of a couple of times off the floor. And then this big guy comes up and starts trying to grab me, and I knocked him back. And then the guy hollers to him, no, that guy's with me. He said, don't hurt that guy. And the guy looks at me and found out it actually was Ringo.
Wow.
Yeah. And I didn't realize, I mean, I saw him quite often in the club. He'd always buy me a drink every time I walked past him. And a very nice guy. And like I say, I assumed he must have lived there for a little bit because he was in that club quite often when I was in there. But anyway, that was one of those stories on Ringo.
That's amazing. What a great story. Did he thank you for saving his ass?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he kept offering to ask me to come sit down at the table with them and stuff like that. And I said, no, that's okay, brother. Y'all have y'all's fun and stuff. Because, I'm the kind of person, if I don't really know you well, I'm going to sit down and socialize with you. And I was never still star bitten by anything. So he's just a guy, that sung, and I just knew who he was. And, but there's a story that hit me last week. And since you talked about the sun and all that kind of stuff, talking about the planets.
Lay it on us.
I kind of go in little trances every now and then. And I went into a trance and opened my eyes and I said, what was that I just got? Now, I won't go this, and you might be able to understand this because you lived on the coast. Now, everything's water. The ocean is water. The air is also water. And supposedly the universe is supposed to also be water, different levels of water. And I thought about that, and then I started wondering, why is it that the tide goes out at night and comes back in the day? And then it hit me. I want you to focus on this one. When you breathe in the air, which is also water. Now, when you take that breath into you, it goes into the dark. Now, when you expel it, now it's more water or thicker water, and you go into light.
That's deep, brother.
And then I thought to myself, I said, oh my goodness, the planet is breathing the water. Each breath is 24 hours, to where we take it every 24 seconds or so. And then I started wondering, well, where does that water go when it disappears to make the levels always lower at nighttime? Which made me start thinking, well, maybe that water goes into another ocean deeper in the earth, and then pushes it back up at the daytime, like it's breathing, like there's a lung below us.
That's amazing.
Anyway, that was one of my thoughts, brother.
And it tracks. That resonates with me.
Well, you have a good one. Thanks for being
Jim.
here.
I appreciate it, brother.
All right, brother. Bye.
I know somebody was trying to call in. If you want, go ahead and call in. We're going to wrap this up pretty quick, but let me pull out the rods and say, did Jim tell us the truth about Ringo Starr? Boom. Yes, he did. Is Jim's thesis about the earth breathing correct? Yes, it is. Is there a huge ocean under us? Yes, there is. That's great, great stuff. Well, that's our deprogram for tonight. Assault on Aquarius. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. I'm finally starting to get a little bit tired, but that won't stop me from doing a esoteric / Bible hot box tonight. So if you want to be a part of that on TikTok, I'll be back. Have I done 2 lives in a day before? I don't know. I'm on my 14-day trial for being live on TikTok, so I'm trying to be good. But there you go, folks. Assault on Aquarius. The book's out there. I just closed the phone line, so don't bother calling anymore, unfortunately. Oh, I'm going to open it up real quick. Give me a chance to open it back up. Give me a chance to open it back up. I knew as soon as I shut it down, somebody would call. I doubt it'll grab your call right now. But hang up right away and call right back, and we'll get you on the air. Yes, that is my ringer. I can hear it all the time, so I know it's annoying, but I kind of like it. So I'll leave the phone lines on for you real quick. If you want to call me, I'll leave it open. So just call right back. Just call right back. I'll pick up your phone call, and we'll close the deprogram with that. In my own defense, I did take down the phone lines number, so I wasn't picking on you. But go ahead and call back if you want, and we'll take your call. Here it is right here. Thanks for being patient.
Yeah.
Let me go over here and hit this.
Press 1.
Thanks for being patient. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty.
Oh, no, not at all. Thank you for taking my call, Jeff. And honestly, man, thank you for all the work you put in.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Oh, no, definitely. And thank you to Jim, too, man. That called it. Everything he said was kind of mind-blowing, to be honest. But just to kind of keep things moving, I just wanted to mention, man, I really do think that you are a true gift. The way you are able to use divination throughout, your whole career and everything, it's something unique, and I wish more people would do it. But
thank you.
I don't want people to get caught up on disagreeing on the finer details. One big thing I noticed is your call on the attack on Aquarius it really rings true to me, because using comparative mythology, there's a huge attack on Aquarius with the castration of Uranus. Uranus is the ruling planet of Aquarius, and there's obviously a huge attack on him by the means of castration. And even though we might disagree on some things, I do believe that there are attacks on certain celestial bodies.
Yes.
And I think we should all try to come together, not to do the pun, but
oh yeah, that's a Beatles song. I like it.
Definitely. I think we all agree on so many things, and they try to use those little finer details that divide us. And honestly, man, we're cousins. We're here, and we should try to get along while we're here. And that's pretty much it, man. Thank you so much, Jeff.
You betcha. And if you've listened to me for a while, I think you have probably noticed me trying to be, more inclusive and more patient. So I appreciate the the encouragement, and I'm right with you. Thanks so much for the call, and I hope it won't be your last one.
No, definitely not, man. You have a great night, okay? Thank you.
Take care. I appreciate it. When you get called everything but nice names all the time like I do, and you get death threats, it's super nice. I am closing the phone lines to get a nice call from a nice person. Thank you so much for that. And that's a great way to wrap up this deprogram. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian whistleblower. It's been fun to be with you. I appreciate you all so very much. Yeah, that ringer is unique. And I hope you'll be back on, what is this, Sunday? I hope you'll be back on Wednesday. We'll do it all again. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm getting better. I think I'm doing my best work ever. And I'm so happy and I'm very honored that you're a part of it. I just hope tonight as we leave that you'll consider that maybe you don't have original sin. Maybe you even have the spark of divinity within. And maybe not just a sinner hoping to be saved by grace and avoid that hot place. I hope you might consider that you're divine, sovereign, and free. And you don't have to go on bended knee to somebody else's Savior and hope he's going to save you from the sin he gave you. Because if you're listening to me, there's a good chance you're part of the last generation of real humans. And we're winning. Nobody's coming back to save us. I'm sending out an SOS. Save ourselves. Because this world's going to be better than it's ever been, sooner than even we can imagine. Because we're finding out who we are. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian whistleblower, saluting you for being here seeking after truth. I'm on TikTok. We'll see you real soon. I love you all. Have a fantastic